Football with friends. It's fun as hell. My name is Alex Dunlap here with Cody Carpentier on a big Wednesday, a hump day. So pumped to be here, Cody. I might have misunderstood what NIL was this whole time. So we're gonna talk about that. But before we talk about that, we wanted to just go over some of these position changes on the defensive side of the football that have been reported this week via Anwar Richardson over at Orange Bloods. I know we talked about it some on the modcast, but I haven't talked to you about any of this stuff. We haven't talked about what it means as far as second order effects for the rest of the roster. So let's just go through them here on Football with Friends here on Orange Bloods Live. And thanks to everybody joining us here and piling into the Specs chat line. So the roster moves, or at least what they're toying with, and I'll have a little bit more about some of this stuff in the war room with some background. But it looks like, at least for now, what's being reported, and I think there's nuance to this that we need to discuss. Jalen Gilbo moves from slot corner or star corner, nickel corner, whatever you want to call it, to outside corner in much the same way that Jahdae Barron last year did. We have Jelani McDonald now moving to star from safety, presumably, and again, that's the nickel corner role, presumably to backfill there for Jalen Gilbo, who I assume would probably play star again this year. And then we have the other move where it's Trey Moore from weak side defensive end / buck end, which is a defensive end linebacker hybrid, to outside linebacker, which truly isn't a position that Texas plays in its base defensive personnel. What does it mean to you?
It means that, a year ago, I remember Catch basically saying, like, that star role was Gilbo's spot 2 years ago now, or 3 years ago. And then he gets hurt, and you see Jahdae go in there, and then Gilbo gets healthy. He goes back inside, and we see Jahdae go outside, and his draft stock shoot up because he shows that he's versatile and he can play basically all 5 positions. And I assume that's probably something that Gilbo, I would venture to bet it's probably not just 100% like the coach walked in and goes, "Hey Gilbo, what do you think? Want to move outside?" I'm sure it was a little bit of both sides kind of wanted to do it. I'm sure Gilbo understands the market for a nickelback or a star at the next level, especially if you're not elite. It falls off. And especially if
He's
you're a
keeping
little
his eye on Jahdae Barron too.
especially if you're a little undersized. Like, we literally just saw Trevius Hodges Tomlinson from TCU, who won the Thorpe Award 5 years ago and was a 5th round pick. He got cut today, right? And generally, if you're a average to below average nickelback, you're churned at the next level and you're a late draft pick. But if you can prove that you can go outside and play outside, you're seeing what happened, and you're seeing what's happened with Jahdae Barron. So there's probably a theory to that. I think probably both sides wanted to do it. They moved him outside. And it also, I think, allows, especially today on the first day, not today, today's not the first day of spring, but it allows you, at least today going into the spring, to begin with what you perceive as your 5 best defensive backs. And that's no slight to Kobe Black. It's more so saying you want to get Jelani McDonald on the field while also having the veteran presence of Taff, McDonald, Derek Williams, Manny Muhammad, Gilbo. You want to have the veterans on the field and not just say, "Oh, we got to put Kobe out there." Like, you want to make Kobe at least go through the spring. Kobe's a dog. Things of this nature. That's kind of where my brain goes.
Well, I mean, the whole Derek Williams thing is an interesting just byproduct of this. So, like, we talk about the second order effects, right? I don't think he's going to be ready for spring football. So So the reason why we bring up Derek Williams is, like, well, everybody knows that Derek Williams, total stud, right? Total stud at safety. If he's healthy, you got to play him. On a per snap basis every year, he's one of these guys that's just a once every 5-6 snaps, just a monster, right? He creates production. And so with his injury last season, which was significant, and I forget exactly when it was, but was that in early November or late October?
Yeah.
It was into the season. And so if we're looking like a 9-month, if we look at a 9-month,
the reason I kind of just inferred it was because I remember the second game they went to Atlanta for, the Arizona State game. There was some footage or some videos or some pictures of Derek Williams in the background, no knee brace on, no like hindrance. He wasn't obviously practicing, but he was there without anything on, and I just assumed, given 4 more months, he was going to be fine by then.
yeah, I don't know if he's going to be. I'm not sure. Like I haven't. It's nothing that anybody's told me or anything. Well, no, I think I've kind of been told, man. Like we're not going. I don't think they're going to push him in spring ball. I could be wrong. That could be wrong because that was something that I talked with somebody about back in, while the season was still going on for Texas back in January. But I don't think. I think what this means it's probably, and the reason why we're talking about Derek Williams is obviously because if there's no Jelani McDonald, if he's playing star, then what's going to happen at safety next to Michael Taft this spring? And what that could be is Xavier Filsaime gets some run. Andrew Makuba at the combine, we were talking to him. We're like, who's next up? Like who's somebody the Texas fans haven't seen who they might, they'd be interested in hearing from a player who's on the field with these guys all the time at practice and stuff. Like who's good? And he's like, well, Xavier Filsaime for sure. Had a lot of really good things to say about him. So it would be interesting if we got to sort of see him. But you're right. The fact that if they are making this move with Gilbo to outside corner, Jelani McDonald to star, that does leave safety in a spot where you're looking at, if Derek Williams isn't healthy, then it's basically Michael Taft, Xavier Filsaime, Jordan Johnson-Revelle, Zealous Hicks. Jonah Williams is playing baseball. So if this does happen in the spring, we are going to get to see some of these young guys, right? But I do think one thing that it does tell us is that you don't make this move. You don't move these chess pieces like this if you're not expecting Derek Williams to be fully himself by the time that the actual real games kick off and real bullets start flying, right? You can't do it.
Facts. And so I went back and I just Googled it. It was Derek Williams got hurt the Oklahoma game and he had surgery a couple weeks later. So I would assume, if he's back by July, that puts it at like 10 months, which I would assume he'll be good for. The report had said he had surgery just a couple weeks later. And I think what we've seen, at least not reporting, but from Jordan Johnson-Rebelle's, at least like social media and stuff, he's grown physically. I don't know about mentally and in the whole in the playbook and stuff, but at least physically, I can tell you right now, Jordan Johnson-Rebelle has grown. So I'll be interested to see first day of spring camp when you go down there what he looks like, if he's the one that is in that spot, because that would be the assumption then today if we don't think Derek Williams is going to be at practice.
Do you think it would be JJR and not Filsaime?
I think it would be JJR on day one.
That's interesting because he was another guy that Makuba brought up. He brought him up too.
Yeah.
We haven't seen those guys get really much run at all. Like I'd be
to me, it's kind of is the I know I've brought up the Finkley thing before, but like it kind of feels like Rebelle has to have an opportunity here, right? If he doesn't get an opportunity and they just go Filsaime,
well, that means he's been recruited over.
Yeah.
Right. So
that's kind of where my brain goes. Then maybe Rebelle's like, all right, well, that portal looks kind of interesting.
Jordan Johnson-Rebelle last year played 22.22% of snaps versus Colorado State. He played 15.71% of snaps versus UTSA. He played 43% of snaps versus La Monroe. Wow. Is that can that be right? 43% of snaps. So season high versus La Monroe. He got in versus Mississippi State, 8.22% of snaps. He played 23% of snaps versus OU. And then versus Florida, he played 10.94% of snaps. So he played in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games last season on defense, whereas Xavier Filsaime played 22.22% of snaps versus Colorado State, 13.73% of snaps versus La Monroe, and then 7.81% of snaps versus Florida. So only got in on defense last season in 3 games. But I do believe that he played special teams, but I think he still has a red shirt. He still has a red shirt. So it must have been in those games that they played him also on special teams, because I could have sworn that I'd seen him out there at least sometimes on kickoff team. So with all this being said, what do you think? Whenever we talked last year about Jahdae Barron moving from star to outside corner, did you think it was going to work out as well as it did?
Of course not.
No one did.
No, it was the literal. It's like when you put a comp on somebody and you go, all right, well, like, the floor comp for Shadur Sanders is Teddy Bridgewater or something like this. And then the ceiling comp is like Tom Brady. And you're like, the odds he hits the Tom Brady are like 0.00001% chance he hits it. Well, the odds that Jahdae Barron was going to move outside, win the Thorpe Award, and be a top 10 pick was like 0.00001%.
That's the Tom Brady, right?
He just happened to do it. Like, it's just, you couldn't. I could have given you truth. I could have done. I don't even know. I could have done anything. You would have never said that's what's going to happen. Like, you knew all these other cornerbacks in the country were out there. Will Johnson's, all these other guys, Benjamin Morrison, all this other stuff, coupled with the fact that the guy hadn't proven that he could play outside. Unrealistic to predict it. So people are going to naturally have a little bit of like, well, if Jahdae Barron can do it, Jalen Gilbo can do it. Not so fast, my friend. Like, there's also a real possibility in this whole thing that they move him outside for the spring, and they're like, yeah, well, Kobe looks fine, so let's bump Jalen back inside, and let's let Jelani just play everywhere else and keep cross training and play some safety until Derek Williams 100%. And there's a real chance that could happen still. They could bump him back inside after just allowing him to play outside and just having these guys at least cross train for the spring.
Yeah, and I think that's it's sort of the deal with Trey Moore too. I think when they say that they're moving him to outside linebacker, to me, what this means, and I'll have more on all this stuff in the war room, or it won't be a ton, but like, I talked to a source about this, and without getting into completely all of it, it's not like they're not going to play Trey Moore at that role anymore. You got to play Colin Simmons more than you played him last. You got to have Colin Simmons rocking out there with the starters. It's just it is what it is, and so it isn't like they're moving Trey Moore to that. But I think what I originally thought, and I feel like I've been, based on what I'm hearing, I feel like I was basically exactly right with what I thought, is what you do is you tell Trey Moore, you're like, look, man, what we need to do this year is we need to show off your versatility and show that you can do some things off the ball. We've seen how much we like what you've done in coverage, covering, even covering slot guys, in the seam, covering tight ends, all the rest of this stuff, knifing off the edge. Texas has a sub package role with outside linebackers where they've had, it's mainly been Maurice Blackwell that's done that. And it's been basically something that they do about 22% of the time. Right. And so if you look at Trey Moore last year, what percentage of snaps did he play? I talked about it. I've talked about this a million times.
50.
But he played a lot of snaps.
Was it 51 or something?
No, 60. 59.95.
Okay.
So it's like, and if you look at what Colin Simmons did last year, he only played 44% of snaps. Now, a lot of that had to do with it got picked up. It picked up down the stretch. It's like,
trend line, yeah.
For the last, like the last 3 of the regular season, you're looking at 54% of snaps, 56% of snaps, 62.5% of snaps. So it goes up and up and up. But obviously, Texas is like, well, we at least want to pick up where we left off with Colin Simmons as far as his usage, right? And so if that's going to be the case, you got to take some Trey Moore out of the equation and give him something else, right? And if you don't think that Ty Anthony Smith is ready to be that guy, I'm not sure Ty Anthony Smith is ready to be that guy yet. You know, you didn't bring Brad Spence in from Arkansas to be a 22% snap contributor. And I don't think that Brad Spence is, you know what I'm saying? I don't think that Brad Spence's skill set is one that where you want him operating at the overhang. You certainly don't want Leon Lafau doing it. Right?
All I can visualize is like Trey Spence playing, or not Trey Spence, sorry, Brad Spence playing middle, and we have Simmons off the one edge, and you have like Justice Terry at the other edge. And on top of Justice Terry, you have Trey Moore playing outside backer. And on the opposite side with Simmons, you have Anthony Hill. And you have these guys basically stacked on the outside in some kind of cockamamie, like 7 and a wide 9. And these guys are just maniacally attacking off the edge. And you have Spence playing that middle spot, kind of where Lafau or Benda did in like a super NASCAR package. And then you just have Travis Shaw playing nose.
Yeah.
And it's just like 3rd and 12, 3rd and 14, and you have this coming after you. This Justice Terry, Trey Moore, Anthony.
It really, dude, feels like it really
maniacal.
It really does feel like a hellscape, dude, for an opposing quarterback, right? The Christopher Summers in the chat saying, "I'm sure they'll figure everything out." Well, I'm sure that they will too, but we're trying to figure it out, Christopher. I mean, I hope they figure it out. Yeah. Thanks to everybody here in the chat, man. We love seeing you guys. Then so that's what I think the issue is with Trey Moore. He doesn't need to play 60%. He doesn't need to play 60% of snaps. You know, and if he does, I think it'll be 40 it'll be a 60-40 split with Colin Simmons, and with Colin Simmons the starter at the Buck, and Trey Moore playing 40 there and picking up an extra 20 as some kind of overhang linebacker. And again, I'll have more on that exact thing in the war room. And then the other one, what was the other one? Trey Moore. Oh, Jelani, Gilbo.
Yep, those 3.
Is there one that's most intriguing to you?
Probably just Gilbo. It's
by far the most intriguing.
Seeing how he fits out there and like what the intention is, because to me the intention is kind of like what I just said. Like I view it as them putting a foot in the water and saying, well, this is what happened last year. Let's see if we can give you the Jade treatment. Let's see if you can handle going outside.
I reported he was getting the Jade treatment, at least as far as what they were trying to do
a month ago.
Yeah, but I was like, does that mean they're moving him outside? And the guy goes, not necessarily. But he didn't say no.
Dip in the toe.
Yeah.
And I think right now you have the depth to do that. You have the depth to do that because you have guys behind all of these guys that you can believe in. Like at safety, if you have the depth at safety with Phil Simi and Jordan Johnson-Rebel, that okay, if Derek Williams isn't ready, we could probably bet on one of Phil Simi or Jordan Johnson-Rebel, being able to get some action in and give. It also opens up to give them more reps during spring ball. And it allows all this different cross training, which we've always heard that they like to do at different positions throughout the entire spring. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, and they'll adjust back to it in the middle. And that's the whole purpose of these off-season things, these off-season camps, is to work guys out in different spots. It's not like you're going in there like, all right, you're the starting outside corner, and we're just going to cook from March until December. You're playing outside. It's like, no, this is a off-season OTA type of thing where you got to try to find the best 11.
Yeah. Well, you know where the best meat shop is in all of Texas. I mean, I hate to say it, if there's if we have listeners out there that own meat shops, I'm not trying to drag your meat shop down, I promise, but it's probably not as good as Texas Beef Traders. It's just it is what it is, man. Right there in the heart of Lakeway off of Loman's Crossing, you get 10% off at Texas Beef Traders, and that's just not like your first order. Where you got to subscribe, you get a box, you get 10% off your first order. Now you can get a box. Cody, what comes in your box at Texas Beef Traders?
Some ribeye, some Piedmontese steak, or some Piedmontese burger, sorry, some Wagyu bacon, and
I think you get some Denver steaks in there.
Denver steaks. I think it's those four. There might be one more thing in the box. I can't remember offhand, but I will tell you this. I'm going to find out. I'm going to remember in about 48 hours because I'm going to fly in. And how many beef shops, how many shops would you fly in across half the country to come to just to get some meat, just to see Darren, just to have a drink, just to relax with some friends and pick up some meat?
When
You
are
know
we
what's
doing
funny?
that? Friday
You
or
say
Saturday?
I'll be in Friday night, and the first thing I'm going to do is drive to Lakeway. And you know what? You get 10% off if you tell them that we sent you. If you flew in from across the country, that's like a $200 flight. If you buy half beef, buy a quarter beef, hey, pay for your flight. Get
Yeah,
10%
man.
off.
Yeah, for sure. And you can buy a whole cow. You can do whatever you want. Texas Beef Traders, it's the best, and we're so happy to be partners with them and be rolling out products like the great beef jerky that we have in 4 different flavors. You can order that in the description below or scanning the QR code that we have up here. But delicious beef jerky and a new product very, very soon. That's my favorite thing in the world. Texas Beef Traders, TexasBeefTraders.com. And if you live in the Austin area, call up Darren, make your order, get your 10% off. Tell him or ask him nicely to bring it to your house, and he'll just bring it to you.
Are we doing samples this weekend?
At Texas Beef Traders,
Yeah.
if you're coming in, like Darren's gonna you know how Darren's
You
gonna
know
do
what
it.
I'm talking about when I say samples. Are we doing the samples?
Um, it depends. What like if you're coming Friday, maybe not. If
Okay.
it's Saturday, maybe.
Maybe I'll come Saturday.
Yeah, so we'll see about that. But as far as the meat samples, hey man, if we'll let you guys know what day, because if Cody's coming in Friday, and we're doing this Friday night, we might not be able to have a show, so because that is an important meeting that we have to go to. So we'll keep you guys abreast. But if we do go Friday, we'll let you know, and you guys come up to Texas Beef Traders and hang with us. It'd be a fun event. All right, dude, there was a question in the chat that was
The Quinn one? I think I saw you start a Quinn question.
started. So I mean, where are we right now with this? Because there was the one thing I wanted to talk about. One of the topics was the I said we got to talk about that NFL.com mock draft that dropped today
With Jackson Dart?
at 3.
Charles Davis, baby.
That's Charles Davis. So he put Shadur Sanders at 1. He put then he put Cam at 2.
Yep.
And then he has Jackson Dart going at 3, which opens up the conversation for one, is there any possibility in your mind? No, you didn't
I don't even need you to ask you. I know what you're going to say.
All right, what am I going to say?
Is there any chance that Quinn gets into the back end of the first?
No, that's nowhere near what I was going to say. Nowhere near. What are the percentage of chance that in a draft class that has Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter, that any order of quarterbacks peel off 1, 2, 3?
No. It's not a good enough quarterback class to even have this discussion.
I'm not even sure that there'll be 2 quarterbacks taken within the 2 that'll be taken within the first 3 picks. Do you feel like Shadur Sanders is falling?
No. So I know there's a lot of people out there that are saying it. There's also some people. I think this is I've listened to a lot of different guys, a lot of different of the big names. I've listened to Todd McShay. I've listened to DJ. I've listened to Lance. I listened to a couple of others, Dane Brugler, all these guys that have had conversations with people in front offices about the Shadur Sanders situation. And the way Lance took it is basically to just nuke him, to drop him. Lance is like, I didn't even want to have him in my mock draft in round 1, but I did it just so I didn't have to hear the repercussions. And then you have guys like DJ, who he's like, every year there's guys with second round grades that go in round 1. It's the nature of the position at the quarterback. And then you have Dane and Todd McShay, who both said, I talked to front offices that are inside the top 10 that said they didn't like the interview. And I did a video this morning on my daily draft ranking show. It's about Shadur. And I said the Shadur Sanders slander it's gone too far. It's to me, you have to read between the lines with this whole situation. That's what the whole mock draft ecosystem is being able to kind of read between the lines. And this is just because there's so much flushed out there and there's so many narratives that are being pushed at any given time that sometimes it's hard to digest it and understand kind of what's happening. And I went through and looked at like a bunch of different mocks, and there's like, Dane, Lance, all these different ones. And it's like a couple of them have Shadur still going into the top 10, and like 3 of them have him outside the top 10, just falling out. There's only 6 spots, right? Everybody knows the 6 spots. The 6 spots are Tennessee, Cleveland, the Giants, the Raiders, the Jets, and then you could say like, the Saints or the Steelers are in the conversation as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Saints have been the sneaky one like the last week that we've heard have had like interviews with these guys. And to me, 2 things. We know the Giants want a quarterback. Joe Shane needs to draft a quarterback. If Joe Shane just goes and signs Aaron Rodgers, which is the current rumor after the Stafford thing departed, Rodgers could literally tear an Achilles in the first play of the game, in the first game of the year, and that's it. And now you're down to, Tommy DeVito again, and Joe Shane's out of a job. Even if you go sign an Aaron Rodgers, you still need to draft a quarterback. Number 2, Cleveland Browns. Guarantee they're taking a quarterback. They like both the guys. Adam Schefter has said that. And Tennessee Titans need a quarterback. Now, they could go out and sign a Darnold or something like this. But there's rumors that Darnold's going to go back to Minnesota. There's rumors that Darnold could go to Las Vegas. Both teams have more money. Both teams have more leverage. Those are 3 teams that we know need and will draft a quarterback. I think when you read between the lines of all this stuff, Shador's going to Cleveland or the Giants, period. I think it's done. I think that's done. I think he knows.
There's no way that the Giants could take that they bring Aaron Rodgers in and they draft Shadur. There's no way that would make the thing explode. There's no way that's
why.
Happening. Can you? I just imagine the New York media and Aaron Rodgers and Shadur Sanders.
Exactly. All like it would be chaos.
Yeah, he's going to get fired. They're all going to get fired. It's too chaotic. It's too much.
Here's my thing is like everything that we saw at the combine and everything, like I watched Shadur at the Shrine Bowl, like behind the scenes and stuff. This is a good kid. I don't like, he's not as like pompous, I guess is maybe the word, like as Dion was. Like I imagine if like Twitter existed in 1989 when Dion went into that Giants interview and he goes, "I'll be gone before your pick. I ain't got time for this." And he walks out. Imagine if that was what Shadur did in a meeting.
Well, I mean, McShay on his show was basically saying that the teams were getting the attitude that he was kind of had that attitude, even if he didn't come out and explicitly say it.
But I listened to McShay he went on Ryan Russillo this morning, and he said that Russillo pushed back at him, and he's like, "So was he an ass or what?" And he's like, No. He's like, he was not like a jerk or like any like aggressive manner. He just gave the energy that he just didn't really care and he really wasn't that professional about the situation. He was there, he was present. He wasn't like I said, being a dick or anything. He was present. He just didn't really give the energy that he was worried about being potentially in that situation. And I think it's all done already. I think the whole thing, I think the top 3 is dealt with, and I think it's only going to,
So you think Cam? You think Cam definitely to the Titans?
No, I think the Giants are at 1. They take Cam. I think Shadur goes 2, and then the Titans at 3 get Abdul Carter.
Oh, you think the Giants? You think the Giants are going to trade?
I would put like a pretty healthy amount of money on that today, March 5th. I know we're like 50 days away, but I would put a healthy amount.
Are you going to put that in your? If you had to put in your huddle report mock today, you would mock that trade?
Correct.
Why is that? Just are people saying this is a lock?
That's what I would do.
Are there odds on this?
I don't know.
Huh. I'll bet you could get. If you bet that the Giants trade up to 1, you could probably get that at like plus 1,500 or something.
And take Cam.
Yeah, you can ask like, can you gamble in South Carolina?
No, I have to drive to North Carolina.
So in some of those states, like on BetMGM and on the Caesar Sportsbook and stuff, you can like text them and just ask them to make you lines. You can say, "What will you give me on Giants trade up to 1 from 3 and take Cam Ward?" They probably, I guarantee, they probably give you plus 1,500, plus 1,800 or something on that. Maybe more. You ought to look into that.
I'm gonna look it up.
All right. Look, speaking of things to look, have you made your poncho order yet for this month?
I did.
What did you decide to get?
It's a pretty nice order. Let me pull it up here. So I pretty much let my wife pick it out for me. She's kind of jealous, I'll be honest, that they don't have women's clothing. So I let her pick up my entire order. I got the Uno Mas.
Which one's that?
The Uno Mas is, gosh, now I'm struggling. I'm trying to like cross page channel. The Uno Mas is the soft, lightweight, breathable. I have the green one of this. It's an ultralight with irregular buttons.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a darkish blue, like a navy color, long sleeve. I got the Performance Crew, which is the sweatshirt thing that we wear basically every single day. But I got the one without the hood, the baby blue one. And then I got the Green Monster, which is a short sleeve, ultralight button-up shirt, because she told me that I needed something for the South Carolina heat in the summer. So I got 3 shirts, a long sleeved Uno Mas. I got a short sleeve button up, and I like those sweatshirts, with the hoodie, but I don't always use the hoodie. So I liked it that they offered it without the hoodie. So I
Yeah,
could
it's so
do that as
comfortable,
well.
man. They're so
I like
comfortable.
those long sleeve shirts, and those ones, they're so breathable, and I like the fit of them, and they kind of like form fit to your body a little bit. So I got those 3, and then because I got 3 shirts, they offered, I think I got like a hat and a canvas tote bag that they just
Yeah.
threw in for me because they're poncho and they're awesome.
Yeah, well, Poncho's awesome. Make sure and scan that QR code and go visit those guys. We certainly do love them. And Cody's right. It's like I'm about to have to transition from wearing my the denim ones I love so much to some of the, it's about to get hot around here, man. And there's nothing like the way that those shirts ventilate, and they're guaranteed for life. They're awesome, man. Poncho Outdoors. And as long as we're thanking our sponsors, of course, we have creeping up to almost 600 of you right now watching the show. Most of you on X. But some here on YouTube as well. We can't thank you guys enough. And of course, we couldn't be doing any of it as far as the Specs chat line without our great friends over at Specs.
At Specs, it doesn't cost a lot to turn a good time into a great time, especially if you like saving money. From connoisseur collectors to aficionados of ale, you'll find bubbly bliss at any budget with a Texas-sized selection of world-class wines, rare spirits, craft beers, and more. So when you're getting ready for a good time, Specs is ready to make it great. Because at Specs, the fun starts here.
Shout Specs, low priced, amazing. Here's to you.
All right, it's Football with Friends here on Orange Bloods Live, man. So pumped to be here with you guys. Thanks again to our great sponsors. Thanks to all of you for being here. Cody, anything more on that mock draft? I guess so. Kelvin Banks went in Charles Davis mock draft, I believe, at 10. To Chicago, which is a common kind of landing spot for him. And then I believe Matthew Golden went as wide receiver 3. He has Emeka Egbuka going ahead of him, as well as Tet McMillan, who you generally see going ahead of him in these mocks. The kind of interesting to see Emeka Egbuka here. It feels like Luther Burden is starting to fall out of these. Matthew Golden to the Washington. Gosh. I mean, Matthew Golden to the Commanders. I'm not sure that I would like that from like a fantasy perspective, because now he's having to deal with Debo Samuel and Terry McLaurin, right?
I just typed in.
But for Jaden Daniels, it would just be a kaboom, dude.
I just tweeted that out like a couple hours ago. It's just like, whoa. And then I put Jaden Daniels rocket ship, because if he gets Matthew Golden and he has Debo and Terry McLaurin, and let's imagine they draft a running back in the first 3 rounds, like, you put in like a Quinn Sean or a Bayshell Tootin in that Washington offense, and all of a sudden you're just Screw peanut oil, dude. You got like jet fuel in there.
Yeah, cooking with jet fuel. If that was not sure how healthy that would be.
Dude, it doesn't matter. You're going fast. That's all
But
that matters.
but honestly, like, does it concern you at all with your kind of eval and ranking on Luther Burden that like now he's falling out of all these mocks and he's got 8.5-inch hands and all this? Like, I'm becoming a little bit concerned about Luther.
I am worried about the hands, dude. Incredibly worried.
Yeah.
Historical standpoint, there's not good.
Yeah. No, it's like, but that's why we go through this whole process and stuff. And there's the concern about, I still haven't figured out why 2023 looks so much different than 2024.
What do you mean?
Just as far as just Luther Burden, as far as the whole Missouri offense.
Well,
it's the same quarterback.
Yeah, but he sucks. Brady Cook got worse.
Well,
he got worse. This is the way I've defined it: is he got worse. The weapons around him at receiver got better, and the running game, you'll say, got better, but they lost the
running back who's actually a better player.
The circle on the board of Cody Schrader's name. And like, there's less worry about.
I'm not saying that the running game. Well, I mean, if you do ask people close to Missouri, they'll say that they feel like the running game was a little bit more effective, and their explosive run rate was up from 2023 to 2024.
This is the Texas defensive back thing from 2023. It's like, oh well, the Texas defensive backs suck because they gave up 1 million yards. It's like, well, it's because they had the best defensive tackle duo in the country, and as soon as that defensive duo departed, teams are able to run the ball a little bit more and throw the ball a little bit less, and the stats obviously coupled with talent, but the stats come back down to earth. And it's like kind of the inverse for Missouri is like, well, they had this macho man in the backfield that people were worried about, and he rushed for 1,400 yards, and they circled his name every week, and then he's gone, and so the defense can just back off a little bit and worry about Theo Weiss and Mookie Cooper and Luther Burden. And all of a sudden the running game is picking up an extra half yard or a yard per carry more. And it's less taxing on the defense, but it's the team. I mean, the team's output overall the team wasn't as good as it was the year before. That's kind of how I guess I worked my way through it. I feel like I've been making way more excuses for Luther Burden.
Yeah, man.
Anything. And that's when I start to get worried, because to me, the profile is like, I love the profile, except for the downtrend in output, inefficient output, and the hand size.
The 8.5-inch hands.
The hands kill me.
Yeah, man. It's really because it's really tough to say. It's really tough to say like, oh, he's gonna be an Odell Beckham or something. You know what I'm saying? Where it's like,
that was the Anthony Miller thing you could tell yourself a story on, because he had 10-inch hands. You're like, oh,
10.25.
It's gonna be good. It's like this kid, like, I don't even know if he could catch a russet potato if I throw it at him.
Yeah. Well, dude, watch the Memphis highlights of Anthony. We don't need to talk about Anthony Miller.
Dude, I loved Anthony Miller.
Watch the Memphis highlights. It's like, man, we just knew it was going to be Miller time once he got to the NFL. It's just, I don't know what happened. Hey, dude, tell me about this, dude. I didn't put this in. Well, I don't know about this. What is the Chris Henry Jr. NIL situation?
So this is one of the things I have in this week's NIL Nuggets of the Week column thread that I started today. And I haven't really decided on a day. We haven't really decided on a day that this is going to come out every week, but Wednesday kind of feels right because I have Monday, Tuesday's news, and Wednesday's news that can go into it, and then I can just add as the week goes on. But one of the pieces that came out today was from A to Z Sports, and it was talking about Chris Henry Jr., who's, of course, the son of the late Chris Henry. He's currently, I think he's adopted from Pac-Man Jones, or he's at least under the
this is guardianship or something.
He's at least under the guardianship of Pac-Man Jones. Grew up in Ohio. So the thing was that the note is Ohio State faces an unprecedented recruiting battle for Chris Henry Jr. as West Coast schools offer stipends to lure him away. And I had never really heard of this before. Kind of like we'll talk about the other piece here in a minute from ESPN, but kind of thought this was kind of in line with like the pay for play thing. Like you just kind of couldn't get paid, until you were signed or whatever. But the note here was basically that Chris Henry, who's been committed to Ohio State for the last year, this is a report coming from Jeremy Birmingham, who is from an OU insider. He heard that some schools are already offering to pay a monthly stipend to Chris Henry now to get ahead of NIL. Birmingham noted that this isn't legal, but California has rules that are different from other states, namely Florida. Jeremiah Smith, the Buckeye current freak phenom at receiver, came from Florida before 2024 season. There are probably loopholes that make it legal. It's illegal to use NIL as a recruiting inducement, but the high school athletes can be paid in California, similar to like Missouri. Like if Ryan Wingo would have committed to Missouri last year, this was the topic, right? He could have got paid while he was in high school. While the Buckeyes can promise the world to Henry, he still has to wait 8 months before cashing in. That's a long time for Ohio State to be forced to sit tight while USC and others can make up ground by paying him stipends. What do you make of that? Do you think that should be something that should just be nationwide illegal or nationwide legal?
I'm certainly not. I'm never, I'm generally not a fan of the federal government. Like if I think that I really desire more, local governance and stuff like that. They can more understand the exact needs of the constituents and everything. With that being said, they got to figure something out within. Like, I was reading that NIL thing from that other NIL thing from your post today that was an ESPN article,
which is a bit bizarre.
And I read that, and I'm like, have I misunderstood this whole time what NIL even is?
No.
Or is it just different for everyone? Because I always thought that, so whenever you get these NIL deals from the university, I always thought it was something like, let me just tell you what I didn't think it was. I didn't think it was the university gives you this, say $800K or whatever. And then they own the rights to your name, image, and likeness that they then market out and that they can use, right? And now what's being attached to this in certain situations, and I don't like whether or not it's legal is a question mark, because it's like, does this fall under employment law because they're not technically an employee? The NCAA doesn't have anything to say about it because the NCAA can't do anything as far as what two at-will parties, what two consenting parties at their own willingness, right, enter into a binding contract to contractually obligate themselves to. That's not something that falls under the NCAA oversight, right? But if they're having a binding contract that has things like buyouts or name, image, and the permanent, in some cases, a permanent ownership of your name, image, and likeness. So much so, even in the future, like holograms of you and things like this, right?
Your tattoos, which
this
doesn't make any sense.
Well, it's like where this is going is, it's obviously like this stuff's going to have to come to a head, man. I didn't understand. I always thought it's like, yo, man, it's going to be a little bit shady with this NIL stuff, and we gotta kind of wink, nod, like we're gonna give you $800K. It's for NIL, but like some of it's going to be, we have this contract with, Dell Children's, right? And so we're going to go there. We're going to sign autographs. You're going to cut commercials for Dell Children's, all that stuff like that. We kind of like our collective gets paid back for that kind of stuff. They get the celebrities there. The kids are happy. You're happy. It's community outreach. It's like stuff like that, right? And then there's also, of course, the other NIL side deals. Vanguard Volkswagen, Vanguard Auto Group, right? Justice Terry got a sick, it's awesome red Dodge Ram just last week. Right. I think Gooseby got one last week too. Those aren't necessarily, those are just like the Michael Taft gets to drive around a Ferrari. It's like, those are the different kind of things than what the coach comes in and says, here's your NIL deal. I didn't know that at some of these schools, they're signing these contracts, sometimes without even legal advisors, where they're signing away the rights to their name, image, and likeness permanently. And some of these contracts now they're starting to do that they're drafting up are starting to include buyouts. And so to me, I think, dude, it just feels to me like, even though, like I say, man, I just,
CBA.
I hate it.
CBA.
Well, but they're truly at this point, I don't think that there can be
There will be.
a CBA, because you have like experts in that article, like that law professor, where he's saying that the contracts look like employment deals because schools control the athlete's actions and tie payments to playing, right? And then, but also there are other lawyers that argue in there that the contracts are one-sided. One guy said that they're unconscionable. So if the schools can cancel the deals anytime without penalty, but the athletes face big fees for leaving, then courts sometimes will like throw out those contracts, right? Because they'll say those contracts are too lopsided, and that's especially the case if they didn't have representation, right? And these are young guys; they're not necessarily always going to have lawyers to tell them the terms, all the rest of this stuff. And then when I wonder if we're just talking about why it might be legal, why it might not be legal. You have the employment argument, like, are they employed? Are the terms fair? And then there's also the antitrust stuff, right? Where it's like, if the NCAA is already right now facing this House settlement for, allegedly limiting athletes' earnings whenever they were collecting all this money, right? That's why the $2.8 billion settlement exists, right? If that's the case, if they're requiring payment to transfer either from a buyout from the player, and some of these say have a buyout from the player, but a buyout from the player or a buyout from the university that they're transferring to, that's a new way to restrict their freedom to move and to make money. So it's like, does that break antitrust laws? Right? Because what you're doing is you're preventing unfair limits on competition. You're preventing you're creating unfair limits on competition, antitrust. So it's like, no one's talking about this. They're just winking, nodding. It's like, come here. And I like, something's going to have to get figured out. None of it. I mean, can they just keep doing it like this?
Well,
I don't know if they can keep doing. I mean, I guess. I mean, they can't get a CBA unless they're employees, though.
Well, what did the University of Illinois law professor Michael Leroy said at the end of that was, it's employment on its face and there's no masking it. Like, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago when I listened to Urban Meyer talk to Bruce Feldman, and they basically said, Urban Meyer basically asked Feldman, he's like, so CBA, and Feldman's like, well, yeah, eventually I think that's what's going to happen. But like, it's kind of like a known thing that like, and we've talked about it, man. It feels so, and it's different because a lot of people are just straight up, especially covering, like, being around the Longhorns, they're just like college focused. Whereas like yourself and I are very much like NFL and college, same time. We're trying to understand both games from an NFL standpoint, from a college standpoint, from behind the scenes standpoint, from everything, right? Kind of balance the two. And you see this one that's like so professional, laid out, and just makes small adjustments every single year on certain things. And this other one that is like, can see what's going on this side, which is college football, looking at the NFL, and every year tries to take these big leaps and bounds towards getting to this level. And you see like what's coming. You can see the CBA coming. You can see salary caps coming. You can see all these general managers that are coming from personnel staffs on the NFL side into GM roles on this side. You can see it all. It's just that there's like so many teams and there's so many hoops to get through. And there's so many things that have to get to that point. And these aren't like billionaires. This isn't like a billionaire owner that just like owns the team and that there's 32 guys that can communicate. We're talking about kids that are students, and you're talking about universities, and you're talking about the NCAA, and you're talking about like layers and layers and layers and layers that make it so confusing. But I think the bottom line is, once April 5th or April 7th comes around next month, and the rev shares hopefully pushed through, something's going to have to happen, because the way that this column kind of writes it up on ESPN is that all of these deals will change. So part of that is this adjustment. So the deals, which will become effective this summer after the rev share thing goes through, are designed to basically be like an employment to the school for these players. And as you were kind of alluding to, within that column, it basically reads in bold letters, the contract states that the arrangement is not pay for play, but it also states that the school may reduce or increase an athlete's payment depending on the athlete's playing time or performance, whilst also talking about implications if a player is deemed healthy and eligible, may not opt out of participating, provisions within that where they could be financially, they could suffer financially if they opt, like all this different crap that you hear in the NFL, but it's more looked at as like they're fined, right? You're fined for wearing long socks. You're fined for skipping practice. You're fined for not playing.
Right.
It's all just making its way to college. And there's just so many layers to get these guys to being actual employees and creating that CBA and there's just so many layers to it that it's just, I think that's what's making everything so confusing. And to be quite honest with you, now we're looking back in hindsight, like there has been no rules the last 3 years.
Well, yeah. And so getting back to the whole Chris Henry thing, I just tell him, like, since we're in the age of no rules, I would say get your money. Even if you want to go to Ohio State, have USC cut you some checks and whatever. Now, you know what I mean? It's like there's money falling from the sky right now for these guys.
It's like, okay, so you're telling me that USC is going to give me $10,000 for the next 10 months, and then I could probably still put the Ohio State hat on and put pen to it.
It's not, I mean, it's a definitely a fraught thing to do morally. It wouldn't be anything that you'd want to, I don't think you'd pray to God and he'd give you the answer to do that. Like, but you know what I mean? But
Marcus Dupree, like, get your free vehicle, get your McDonald's bags, like do what you got to do.
Yeah. No, and this kind of stuff is going on for a while, but now that it's up out in the wide open, it's just like some of this stuff's gotten too sideways. It's gotten cockamamie. And as much as I just despise unnecessary regulation, there's some things that you got to, like, you got to regulate some stuff. Like, there's got to be a couple rules here.
I think it's for the betterment of the sport.
Well, I mean, I think that
if it gets done,
I think there's a lot of old timers out there. I'll tell you that, man, none of this stuff isn't really that good for the sport. But the numbers show that college football is getting more and more popular. And the numbers show that this show is indeed getting more and more popular, even though we're in the middle of the off season. Now, you can email us, fwfemails@gmail.com. You can find us on X at Cody Carpentier, at Alex Dunlap NFL. We're here every night from 6 to 7 p.m. We couldn't do it without you guys. We couldn't do it without our great sponsors, Texas Beef Traders, Specs, MyPerfectFranchise.net, our great friend Andy Ludicky, and of course, Poncho Outdoors. I think we have the Outsiders coming up a little bit later tonight, so make sure and stick around for those guys. And as always, man, we don't hit you with this throughout the show. We try to get in, get out, talk football, no filler. But it really helps if you like the show and subscribe to the channel. So please do that. Our only other asks, tell a friend, let them know, man. Say, do you guys like hearing about the Longhorns? You like hearing about SEC, NFL draft, recruiting? Listen to Alex. Listen to Cody. You can find him whenever on Orange Bloods Live. To everybody who's here live, thank you guys so much. To the masses of you who will be watching this show on Thursday, have a great Thursday, man. We love you guys. God bless you. For Cody, I'm Alex. We are done.